Alright, I am back with another video, and today we are doing the next of the Deity build series, Garl Glittergold. For those of you who don't know, Garl Glittergold is basically just kind of the gnome god. He is the, basically, he's known as the Watchful Protector, and is basically the great deity of gnomes. He is basically a deity of luck, protection, and trickery. So whenever you think of everything that like a kind of fantasy gnome would stand for, Garl is pretty much it. He's allied with, like Yondala, Corellian, and Moradin, basically all of the kind of good guys, and he kind of has a bit of a, well, a bit of a rivalry with the Underdark because he keeps liking to pull pranks on them. But basically, Glittergold is just kind of the guy who is kind of credited with, I guess in the folklore, he kind of introduced the gnomes to like the wider world. Apparently, he literally found the whole race of gnomes in a cave and then was like, "Hey, there's stuff outside," and then he became the god of gnomes. That's not exactly how it happened, but you get my point. Long story short, Garl is basically just he's the kind of just blanket deity for gnomes. I mean, there's not actually that much about him on the Forgotten Realms wiki, oddly enough. He's probably one of the deities I've had to work with who has probably the least amount of information readily available, so if there's some stuff I missed as far as the lore is concerned, blame the wiki. But it did have enough that I think I was able to kind of get an interesting idea for a build, and one that you probably might not expect. I mean, of course we do take some of the obvious things here, as you could probably already have guessed, but I think the way we kind of switch things up makes for a very interesting and unique build that I wasn't actually expecting to be all that good, but surprised me with how kind of versatile it can be. So, let's get into the build. First up, of course, we are playing a gnome, that only makes sense, and we are playing a rock gnome, giving us access to dark vision and artificer's lore, adding twice our proficiency bonus to history checks. Basically just kind of the bog standard gnome. Forest or deep would work just fine here, but I kind of wanted to play the classic rock gnome because I never actually have in a build before. I've done both forest and deep, but never rock, so thought I'd do it this time. And our starting class is in fact going to be Paladin. But why Paladin? Well, Paladin is going to give us a few things that felt right for Garl Glittergold to me. First up, we're going to be getting access to all martial weapons and armor. Martial weapons is especially important because Garl is actually known for wielding a great axe. And, well, I say wielding a great axe, he had a animated great axe that was actually alive, that he fought with, and it kind of floated and did its own thing, so you can kind of guess where I might be going with that a bit later. But Paladin will allow us to wield a great axe, and I thought for a chosen of Glittergold, having a big great axe makes sense, and also the idea of this tiny little gnome man just absolutely whooping enemies' asses with a great axe like twice his size felt perfect to me. So we've gone with a great axe wielding Paladin gnome, which I love. Also, Paladins will get Divine Smite, which is literally turning your weapon bright gold and smacking enemies down. I like to think of it less in this case as divine energy and just the pure fabulous brilliance, radiance of gold itself, the idea of gold rather than divine energy. I don't know, it's just kind of fun, felt right to me. So for your subclass, you can kind of pick whatever you like. Oath of Devotion would let you focus more on the kind of the radiant damage side of things if you feel like you really want to lean into the gold aspect. Oath of Ancient feels kind of Glittergoldish. Again, him kind of introducing gnomes to the wider world and the lore could basically be kind of giving him a connection to nature in a weird way, so Oath of the Ancients would be fine, plus the healing is kind of nice even though we wouldn't get that much of it. Vengeance is probably the only one I'd say I'd probably stay away from, or Oathbreaker, because it doesn't quite feel right, but Ancients or Devotion will work. I chose Ancients for the purpose of this build's testing, so that's what I'll be showing off in this video, but either of these will work. Next up, the background, and of course I went with Entertainer. Entertainer is basically just, it makes sense for a character like this, being a kind of funny man, you know, bringing up the group, because the whole thing of, like, worshippers of Glittergold was that they'd have, like, festivals and such where people would tell jokes, do performances and all that sort of thing, so an entertainer for this background makes perfect sense to me, giving us acrobatics and performance. And as for our ability scores, the game has screwed them up. There we go, I've not fixed them. They are now fixed. We have Strength at 16 because we're going to be using a Strength-based weapon, Dexterity at 12 because we don't really need it as we're going to be wearing heavy armor, and we'll actually have a way to boost this up to 14 later. Constitution at 14 because it's a nice middle ground for us, and we will have another way of bumping this up later, which is fun. And Charisma at 16 as it is going to be our main spellcasting modifier. We are a Paladin after all, but you could probably already guess what we're going to be multi-classing into with this build. As for our skill proficiencies, we already get Acrobatics and Performance, like I said. History, because we're a rock gnome, even though our Intelligence and Wisdom are dump stats, which does kind of suck on this build. Having that low Wisdom is always a bit risky, but if you wanted to slap something like the Amulet of the Harpers to give us advantage on Wisdom saving throws, you could. I've only just thought of that now, and it probably would have been a good idea for this build, but I forgot to do it, and I picked something else. But I think the thing I picked does still work, but you can change that up if you like. And finally, for our 2 skill proficiencies, I have gone for Intimidation and Persuasion alongside our already existing Performance, because again, I feel like this guy having all of the kind of like dialogue skills for Charisma would absolutely make sense. Even Intimidation, because I'll tell you what, right? There's nothing, in my opinion, more intimidating than when a trickster gets a hold of you. So like when you see like characters like Loki or something like that, people who are known, or like a Harlequin type character who are known for being mischievous and, you know, happy-go-lucky and seemingly foolhardy, and then all of a sudden you realize you've fallen right into their trap, and that kind of trickery persona turns extremely sinister while still being jovial. That, in my opinion, is one of the most intimidating things ever, and I think this guy could pull it off. Despite looking like, I don't know, a cereal mascot. He looks like the Lucky Charms bloke if he had a fabulous mustache. By the way, Garl Glittergold, look at his picture on the Forgotten Realms wiki. Fabulous mustache, one of the best I've ever seen. Rivals the beard build in terms of pure facial hair magnificence, okay? I would definitely go check it out. And I'm going to make you go check it out because you should go visit the Forgotten Realms wiki because it's a fun wiki to kind of dive into and explore. So, go have a look. What a weird tangent. Next up, at Paladin level 2, we are going to be going to level 2 because, of course, I do want Divine Smite. You already know what this does. It's going to add additional radiant damage to our weapon attacks, even more so on a critical. We're also going to get access to a fighting style, and since we are going to be using a great axe with this build, picking up great weapon fighting just makes sense. And finally, we do get access to prepared spells, and there are obviously a bunch you could take here, but I'll go over the ones that I chose. Divine Favor will add more of that golden radiant damage to our attacks. Compelled Duel just feels right for a kind of a trickster saying, oh, do come at me, I think it would be fun, like something along those lines. Command is also a fun one as always, and I like Bless and Heroism, but less heroism and more like kind of a fool's confidence in a sort of funny way like that, and Bless is just a great buff spell. Anyway, next up at Paladin level 3, we're not going to be taking it. I just remembered we got a multi-class right away, so we're going to be multi-classing into Cleric. Here, Cleric, obviously, we always take Cleric with the deity builds that have selectable deities in game, in this case Garl, who is the Watchful Protector, and the King of Gnomish Gods, a deity of humour, gem cutting, protection, and trickery. So, we're going to be able to kind of get dialogue options related to Garl Glittergold now in-game, which is always nice. And of course, for our subclass, what other subclass is it going to be other than Trickery Domain? Of course, we like to have Trickery Domain here because, again, that is Garl's domain, and it's going to give us a few things. The ability to get advantage on stealth checks, which could be helpful later. We also gain the ability to use Disguise Self, which is always useful, and Charm Person, although it is going to use our Wisdom, so it's going to be less effective for us. So I'm not too worried about this particular part, but the Disguise Self is nice. Like, we also get access to cantrips here, and of course we're going to go for Resistance and Guidance to help out with those skill checks, as well as Thaumaturgy to gain advantage on Intimidation and Performance checks, which just feels right for this build. Next up, prepared spells. Of course, I'm taking Sanctuary. You already know it is the most powerful utility spell in the game. At this point, I've pretty much decided, and as you will have seen in the combat footage, it allowed me to single-handedly win the battle. Sanctuary can be used in so many different ways, especially with this build in conjunction with other spells, so I mean, I'm always going to take with this with the deity builds unless there is something, unless there's a use for Create or Destroy Water, because Sanctuary is just the best utility spell in the game. Now, you do have a choice if you want to actually do this bit or not. I personally am, because I think it fits the build, but I could easily see putting this level into a different class if you think it would be more appropriate. But I am going to go to level 2 of Trickery Cleric here. This is going to give us our Channel Divinity as well as some level 2 spell slots at this point, making us a bit more effective with our Divine Smites, as well as Invoke Duplicity as our Channel Divinity action, allowing us to gain advantage on attack rolls for us and our allies as long as we are within 3 meters of a basically illusion of ourselves that we create. What is more fitting for this build than being able to make a illusory duplicate of yourself? And again, getting advantage is great for paladins, meaning that our smites are more likely to crit, which is great. The only problem is that both the attacker and the creature must be within 3 meters of the illusion, and the illusion can be attacked by enemies, and it doesn't really have any HP, so an enemy can just quickly pop it to get rid of it. But that advantage for the whole party, even for just 1 round, can be really, really valuable, and it just fits you perfectly for this build not to grab. But again, if you don't feel like it's that valuable, feel free to put a level into one of our other classes. It's entirely up to you. And now we are done with Cleric as well. You could go to level 3 of Cleric for Mirror Image, Warding Bond, Spiritual Weapon, but we are going to be getting that a different way later. It's entirely up to you if you want to pick this sort of stuff up. Mirror Image is obviously a very good spell that would fit perfectly for this, as well as Pass Without Trace as well. So feel free, again, to play with the levels on this one, but we are going to be jumping into our main class now. And it's Bard. I mean, what else was it going to be? Come on. Revelry, Trickery, all that great stuff. It's Bard in a nutshell, and Bard being a full caster is going to help out with the Paladin stuff, and we can also get martial stuff from it too. It makes sense to go with Bard here, but again, play with the level ratios as you see fit. So, for our cantrips, of course, we're going to be taking Vicious Mockery. Why wouldn't we? As well as Friends. Again, the bog standard Bard combo, not exactly breaking new ground here. As for our spells, we do have quite a lot of the spells we would already like to have from Cleric, although I could see you picking up healing spells here, which would probably be a pretty good option overall. Having a bit of healing on this build would be nice if you don't have a dedicated healer, but I feel like most playthroughs in this game do have a dedicated healer in some shape or form, so I'm going to pick up Speak of Animals, Dissonant Whispers, Fairy Fire, and Longstrider, because Longstrider will help patch up our gnomish movement speed a bit. And Speak of Animals is great, we always like to have that on a playthrough as the face of the party. Dissonant Whispers for, again, psychic damage is always nice, and Fairy Fire to give advantage against enemies, which I just realised kind of makes Invoke Duplicity pointless. You know, let's swap that out for Healing Word. Your starting instrument can be whatever you want. I went with a drum. Garl wasn't specifying to have any specific favourite instrument, at least from what I understand. So, I went with the drum. Because with this guy, his swagger and pizzazz is so great that first he'll bang the drum, then he'll bang your mum. And then finally we have a skill proficiency, and the game has chosen Deception for us. We are a Trickery guy, so Deception makes perfect sense. Next up, at Bard level 2, we're getting all the usual stuff, Jack of all trades, and Song of Rest for that third short rest. We love these features, they're always great on any build. And also we do gain access to an extra level 1 spell of our choosing. I'm going to pick up Cure Wounds. At Bard level 3, we get to choose our subclass, and it's entirely up to you what you want to pick here. Any of these will work. College of Law makes sense because you're going to be literally throwing out insults, and while not having extra attack does kind of suck, you kind of do make up for it for the fact that you are still going to be using smites at the end of the day with maximum level spell slots. They scale up to level 4, so you're still going to be doing big damage on single attacks, but obviously extra attack doubles that output. But if you really want to go for College of Law to be able to get the extra spells from Magical Secrets as well, you absolutely can. Something maybe like Spirit Guardians on this build could be really nice. Entirely up to you. College of Valor would also be really, really good if you want to kind of play more of the support role, being able to use Combat Inspiration and getting access to a bunch of stuff that we already have from Paladin. Probably wouldn't pick this one if you want the extra attack, so, of course, we're going with College of Swords. College of Swords allows you to attack with finesse and like, pirouetting and, you know, bowing your head before you strike. I mean, come on, what's more trickster than that? Again, this build is almost kind of Harlequin-esque, but I kind of leaned more into the fabulousness and regal side of gold a little bit, just a little bit. I mean, again, look at the picture of Garl Glittergold, you'll see exactly what I mean. But this is going to give us the sword flourishes, as I said, allowing us to, with a melee or ranged attack, be able to attack up to 2 enemies at once, give ourselves +4 AC for hitting, as well as being able to push an enemy and then teleport to them, again with either melee or ranged attacks, and each of these attacks would deal an extra bit of damage equal to our Bardic Inspiration die, and that goes up with our Bardic Inspiration die increases, which is great. You're also going to get a fighting style. Now, while neither of these really matter overall, I did pick up 2 weapon fighting so that we can dual-wield hand crossbows later. A 2-handed weapon and dual crossbows. Why does this sound so familiar? Anyways, we also do get access to level 2 spells at this point, and of course for a Trickster God, I want Crown of Madness, being able to spread madness around, your enemies, and I like to think this is you kind of like using illusion magic to make enemies look like you in the eyes of another enemy, so they start attacking them. I think it's kind of sinister, but honestly, fits right in with a Trickster. We also do gain access to 2 skill expertise, and the game has given us Deception and Performance, which I think fit perfectly here. Next up at Bard level 4, we are going to be getting our first feat at total level 8, which, yes, does seem like a bit of a downside of this build, but of course with various pieces of equipment and other things, you can have your stats be a little bit higher as you progress throughout the game, or of course you could just swap the level order as you go. I recommend starting with a level of Paladin, but if you'd rather go straight to Bard 4, 5 or 6 or something like that, and then picking up the rest of the stuff later, you can. Although again, I do like to get that early level of Cleric for the dialogue options. I'll admit, the leveling in this one can be a bit tricky. Those lower stats do hurt a bit, but again, you'll have teammates to back you up, as well as the ability to use stat boosting equipment as well, if you so desire. But again, feel free to change around these levels as you see fit. Or, in fact, just play the game as a Paladin straight up, and then respec later when you have the levels. Entirely up to you. As for our cantrips, we do get to pick another one. Mage Hand or Minor Illusion I think would fit perfectly, but I'll go with Minor Illusion. We do get access to another level 2 spell at this point, and Hold Person is always great, although Invisibility does also make sense for our kind of trickstery ways, so feel free to pick whatever you like here. We also do get that first feat, like I said, and I'm just going to take an ability score improvement and bump up our strength, as we are still mainly martial focused at the moment. We'll pick up that bump to our charisma later. At Bard level 5, we get access to the 2 big features of Bard. Font of Inspiration now means our Bardic Inspiration can recover on a short rest, meaning we can use our sword flourishes more often, as well as in our improved Bardic Inspiration bumps up our damage from our flourishes to a D8. We also do gain access to level 3 spells at this point, and I want Hypnotic Pattern, allowing us to hypnotize creatures so that they cannot see us, so that they cannot attack us, or move, or act. And this spell can even be cast while silenced, which is a nice little extra trick of it. Bard level 6 is going to give us a few things, including extra attack, meaning now at total level 10, we can now attack twice with our main hand weapon. Yes, I know the leveling on this one is weird, but trust me, it makes sense. To be honest, if you're not playing this as a Deity build, drop the Cleric levels and just make a Paladin Bard. But, again, Deity build, Cleric levels, you know the drill. As well as Counter Charm as well, giving us advantage on saving throw, giving us and allies advantage on saving throws against being charmed or frightened, as long as we are within 9 meters of the charm. Plays a little music box that plays a music box rendition of the main theme, which is lovely. We also get to pick up another spell at this point, and I'm going to say Glyph of Warding is a fun one, being able to place traps with various different effects around the battlefield, and again, I almost now picture this being almost like Looney Tunes-esque, where you place the trap and then just like wait for the enemy to step on it, and it's just like kaboom. I don't know. Feels perfect for this build, but pick up whatever you like. Bard level 7 is going to give us access to level 5 spell slots at this point, as well as we do get to pick level 4 spells. There's 2 that obviously, there's a few that make sense here. Confusion, at Polymorph, and Greater Invisibility, and I'm going to pick up all 3 over the next 2 levels. We'll grab Polymorph first, being able to turn creatures into harmless sheep, a very trickster thing to do. And we're going to replace an early level spell, I would say maybe something like this, if we find it's not too useful, and we're going to replace that with Confusion, allowing us to confuse a group of enemies, causing them to attack at random, wander around aimlessly, and occasionally skip turns. Pretty nice control spell. And finally, at Bard level 8, we are going to get access to another level 4 spell. Of course, I've already said it, we're taking Greater Invisibility, allowing us to turn invisible and have attacks against us have disadvantage, and we make attacks with advantage. Again, great for smiting paladins. As well as the ability to grab another feat, and we are going to bump up our charisma at this point. And that is the build. Overall, you're getting A lot of stuff. I mean, I actually had to remove some of like the basic actions that I don't use very often from the hotbar just to fit it all in. You're going to be able to, you know, attack with really powerful smites, blade flourishes, you gain all the utility spells, you have high charisma so you can be the face of the party, you have a bunch of different interesting tools at your disposal for being able to be a trickster in combat, such as Invoke Duplicity, Sanctuary, Greater Invisibility, Polymorph. Again, overall, you're just going to be a very good jack of all trades, like most bards. You're not going to be particularly excelling in any specific form of combat. Melee will probably be handled better by fighters, but I guess overall, actually, your melee is still pretty good. You got like extra attack and all that. But I mean, again, you are a jack of all trades. There are some things that you won't be able to do as well as other classes, but you'll be able to do a lot of things pretty damn decently. It did take me a few tries in the combat footage to get a successful encounter. Some RNG kind of happened here and there, but once I got into kind of the groove of how to use this build properly, it became pretty powerful. You'll see what I mean when I talk about it later, but trust me, this build is worth it. So, let's get into the equipment. Oh, and by the way, don't ask why I decided to record this in Shares's Caress. It just kind of felt right. Also, I'm pretty sure there's a gnome woman here who this guy is kind of fond of. Anyways, let's get into the equipment. And let's start off with the big ticket main attraction, our Great Axe, Sethin. Sethin is a +2 Great Axe that felt perfect for this build. Not only does it give us the ability to cast a spiritual weapon Great Axe at the 6th level, giving us Garl Glittergold's, like, the spirit of his animated Great Axe, it also comes with Reduce, so it literally is like a, hey, why don't you fight someone your own size, and then he shrinks you to his size, and then he fights you. Come on, you cannot tell me that is not the most perfect thing ever. Unfortunately, both of these are only once per long rest, but who cares? It's too perfect not to include. Also, it's golden. The Great Axe is golden. If I didn't know any better, I would say this is Garl Glittergold's weapon. Just straight up. If that wasn't intentional, that's eerie that how close that is. And of course, our ranged weapons, I've gone for the standard dual crossbow combo, like I said. Hellfire hand crossbow allows us to possibly inflict burning when hitting a creature while hiding or invisible. Again, kind of perfect for a trickster. We also get the ability to use Scorching Ray Shot, basically a level 3 Scorching Ray, once per short rest, as well as the Near Misser, a +1 crossbow that does exclusively force damage, allowing you to get around some resistances, and also gives us a level 3 casting of Magic Missile, once per short rest. Lovely little standard kit here that is great for this build. Next up, the equipment. We have the Gibbous of the Worshipful Servant. At the start of combat, the wearer gains momentum equal to their charisma modifier, meaning that at the start of combat we can get into melee range a lot easier, as we're going to have a pretty decent bit of momentum here, giving us increased movement speed equal to our charisma modifier, which is nice. It also gives us advantage on concentrating saving throws. That means if we're concentrating on powerful spells, such as Greater Invisibility, Fairy Fire, Crown of Madness, Polymorph, Hold Person, we're going to be able to keep those spells up much, much easier. Next up, the Cloak of Displacement, being able to kind of make yourself blurry and hard to hit, giving enemies disadvantage on attack rolls against you, basically constantly casting the spell Blur on you at the beginning of the turn, and the effect will last until you take damage, making you very, very hard to hit. With 20 AC and disadvantage on all attack rolls to hit you, you are going to be very hard to hit. Next up, the Dwarven Splint Mail. We take 1 less piercing damage, gain a +1 bonus to strength saving throws and checks, disadvantage on stealth checks overall, which does kinda suck, but again we have ways of mitigating that, as you've seen. But the main thing here is Constitution +2, up to 20, giving us a much better hit pool, with a total of 16 Constitution. You can change this out if you like. It's not necessary to have that much Constitution, but having that extra bit of HP and the better concentration saving throws does feel pretty nice, but a decent piece of medium armor could go well with this build, or something like that. It's entirely up to you. Speaking of kind of medium armor and dexterity, we have the Nimble Finger Gloves, a piece of armor I've never featured on the channel before. Gnomes are granted a +2 to dexterity, while halflings and dwarves gain a +1, and we also gain a slight buff to our sleight of hand. This allows us to have better initiative rolls, as well as giving you the option to use medium armor if you so choose. And again, I figured Nimble Finger, Garl Glittergold, I mean, it all kind of made sense thematically to me, and I wanted to show these off because I think they are a genuinely great option that I plan to play around with in the future. But of course, this is an Act 3 option, so if you want something from earlier in the game that could honestly be an alternative all on its own, we have the Wondrous Gloves, giving you an additional bardic inspiration, which will bring you up to 6 total, as well as giving you a +1 to your armor class. And this is attained really early in the game, so you might find it to be a decent alternative altogether. I'll just quickly show off what the build looks like. Did his trousers just fall down? His trousers are falling down. His skirt's broken and it's fallen down. Never mind. That's so what a strange visual bug. That's so weird. Anyways, this is kind of what the build looks like without the camp clothing, if you're curious, but obviously camp clothing is key here. And finally, we just have the Evasive Shoes, giving us a +1 to our armor class. Either these or the Disintegrating Nightwalkers would work, giving you that usage of Misty Step, but this rounds out our AC to a nice even 20 without having to use the Wondrous Gloves, but of course feel free to swap those around as you see fit. I did forget to mention earlier, but I'll bring it up now, Sethin is an Act 3 weapon, so a nice Act 1 alternative would be the Very Heavy Great Axe. Again, the kind of comedic feeling of a little gnome wielding a very heavy great axe. You're going to get access to a unique attack called Gargantuan Cleave, dealing an additional 1d6 damage, and swinging your weapon with all your might, you can attack multiple targets but become off-balanced at the end of the turn. Off-balanced basically means that you the next time you're hit, you have to succeed a strength save or be knocked prone. We have very good strength, so I'm not too worried. But again, just kind of felt funny that this guy's like swinging a big great axe and then just kind of trips over because he's so short. I don't know, it felt right to me, but again, perhaps by the time you got Sethin, you've kind of mastered the combat style, so that you lose that disadvantage. Next up is the accessories. I have the Amulet of Misty Step here to just give us access to Misty Step, a very trickstery spell. Again, this plus a Disintegrating Nightwalkers could work, but again, I could also recommend the Amulet of the Harpers, giving you shield once per long rest, as well as advantage on wisdom saves, which will be nice since we're kind of lacking in those. And finally, the two rings that really make this build shine and is a classic bard combo, the Band of the Mystic Scoundrel and the Ring of Arcane Synergy. The Band of the Mystic Scoundrel allows you to, after hitting a creature with a weapon attack, you can cast illusion or enchantment spells as a bonus action. So that's Vicious Mockery, Dissonant Whispers, Hold Person, Polymorph, Hypnotic Pattern, Friends, even, I guess. Basically, you get a lot of options to be able to use your bonus action. Greater Invisibility is a great option if you need to escape from combat quickly and maybe your Sanctuary blocked. I did end up using that strategy in the combat footage, and it basically saved me for a turn, which was really, really nice. And this can trigger on either Divine Smites, regular attacks, or our Sword Flourishes, so you're pretty much always going to have this up. But of course, if you decide to cast Vicious Mockery with this, you'll be able to trigger the Arcane Synergy ring for your next turn, giving you Arcane Synergy for dealing damage with a cantrip, which adds your spellcasting ability modifier to the damage of your attacks. One of my favourite Swordsbard combo for rings, pretty much always recommend it, and it fits perfectly on this build. Also, for the camp clothing here, we have the Chocolatier style doublet, but any with this kind of similar model will work, and the Tanner's Delight, coloured with pale orange. I did go for the baby blue and gold because it literally has gold in the name, but it just looked really bad. It just looked really, really bad, and I didn't want to use it, but I kind of like the way this one looked, so I went with it. It's got, like, the golden trim on it, but there's obviously other options if you have, like, modded dyes and such like that. If you want that bit more of a golden look, Lush Burgundy also looks kind of good. It's got a bit of gold trim with a nice deep red, but I felt like this was kind of a nice colour combination, but I haven't really shown off before. So yeah, that is the build. Overall, it's quite interesting. The combat style is very different than your standard Paladin. Yes, you're going to be hitting with big Divine Smites, but after those big Divine Smites, you'll have a ton of options for manipulating the battlefield as well. Thanks to the Band of the Mystic Scoundrel, you can hit with the big Smite or the Sword Flourish, either with your melee or ranged attacks, and then start throwing out either Vicious Mockeries, sneaking away to get advantage on your next hit with Greater Invisibility, being able to set Glyphs of Warding, perhaps, cast Dissonant Whispers to get psychic damage that way and potentially frighten enemies, cast Hold Person to be able to allow your next Divine Smite that you can use with your extra attack to suddenly be a guaranteed critical hit. Oh, And then, if all else fails, you can use Sanctuary until you can get your bearings and set up your next attack. Also using Invoke Duplicity to give the whole team advantage. There's a lot of fun stuff to work with here, and being able to have a spiritual weapon at your side is always great. This build has everything you need: melee, range, spellcasting, battlefield control, even healing. You can do it all with this build, and again, you get all the fun flavour of being a bard, with the charisma and being the face of the party, as well as being able to play an instrument, because who doesn't love playing an instrument? But yeah, I mean, that is the build. There's not much else to say there. I will say I'm recording this on the Thursday, which means that obviously a few things have happened with the channel. The big one being the fact that I made that update video, which talked about a new direction I want to head with the channel, with kind of a slightly more focus on tabletop content. And you guys were all really supportive of that. Basically, I got a ton of kind comments from all over the community, including from people I don't think I've actually seen comment before, who were talking about how, you know, my videos kind of helped them out. Like, well, I say helped them out, but, you know, gave them something to listen to and, like, all that sort of thing. And it really, really warmed my heart. So many of you had so many nice things to say, and saying that you're going to back me as I go into this new stage with the channel. And I can't be more thankful. Genuinely, thank you all so much. I plan to have my kind of pilot episode for the character creation series going up sometime soon. I just need to figure out some of the finer details, mainly how to do the visuals. Like I say, I want to make kind of podcast style content for the most part, where it's mainly meant to just be listened to, but I do want to have visuals for the video in some shape or form. I probably will end up using BG3. I might do something similar to what I did with my old D&D builds, where I had kind of just like a picturesque kind of scene playing in the background of like a decent camera angle, and then again just maybe just have at the beginning, so like sit back and listen and enjoy or something. I'll figure something out. But basically that series, if you didn't see the update video, is going to dive in more into like the actual character making side of things, less mechanical build making, but more coming up with the backstory, name, lore, basically giving you a character that you can use as an NPC or a player character in a campaign or a video game or something. Basically just a character you can use anywhere for free, with an idea, with kind of like footnotes on how to build them in multiple systems like BG3, D&D, Pathfinder, all that sort of thing. Looking forward to showing that one off. Live streams, I mean, today's the Friday. I'm not exactly sure what Saturday's live stream is going to be yet. We're still trying to get the Chaos stream together, but I think I might delay that just because there might be some scheduling conflicts going on for some players, and I kind of want to make sure that everyone who wanted to join can join in. So I might do something that I've kind of been planning to do for a stream as a while, a bit of a mystery stream that I think all of you will really, really enjoy, something very interactive that we can all get in on. Not something I've previously announced as well, as it's going to be mainly just a one-off thing, but I think it could be really, really fun for a stream. So I'm going to try and get that ready over the course of the next couple of days. And yeah, I mean, I don't think there's much else to talk about other than the fact that, again, a sincere thank you for all the support you've been giving me. I mean, what else can I say that I didn't already say in the update video? If you want to go watch that, just to kind of get a bit of a deeper sense of what I've been talking about, if you haven't seen it already, feel free to do so. But anyways, I am going to call it here because it is actually quite late. I wasn't even sure I was going to be able to get to record today. It is actually 8:20 at night. So I'm going to get the editing done on this one and get it uploading. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all next time. Bye-bye!